I mean, the way it played out, the way it became most apparent is in the way that, people started to deny the guys who were looting COVID warehouses. And I mean, if COVID warehouse did near me at that time, I go follow looter. Quote me anywhere.
Word up.
Yeah, because
Word up. Yeah.
Nice.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen.
You already know. No, I was just saying that because it's a free Zoom, I don't know. I think it might try to cut us out at 45 minutes. So we'll just do like we were doing before. If it kicks us out, we'll just jump back in to finish up. So yeah, I don't think we should go beyond 7:30 because I know everyone has obligations. So
thanks for being considerate.
Come on, Joe. Yeah, when have I not been considerate? Who's the inconsiderate one? Yeah. Anyway, so listen, man. We have had several conversations, some on WhatsApp, some previous ones recorded, on EndSARS in the year after the protest. But we thought that it was appropriate to have another conversation on EndSARS because of a few reasons. One is the feeling that the general mainstream remembrance of EndSARS 1 year on was showing some worrying trends in terms of what was being remembered and what was being forgotten, that we felt like it was important to kind of thrash out here. I think the second reason is that there are aspects of what had happened that we discussed last year that have become a little clearer, with the benefit of a year's worth of hindsight that we wanted to thrash out here. And then I think the third reason is that in some respects, the way in which the left has metabolized or tried to digest the experience of EndSARS in the past year has also left us feeling a bit dissatisfied overall. And I think that prompts like one more conversation about EndSARS. And then a further thing to say by way of background is that actually EndSARS was very inspiring for all of us in this conversation. I mean, we were already part of various kinds of movements or initiatives around the left, and we had already been having a conversation about starting a podcast, but for various reasons, like the outbreak of the movement put a sort of fire under our rear ends, I suppose. At least speaking for myself, that was certainly the case in getting us to actually have the sit down that ended up becoming the podcast. So I think inspired by all of those things, we're here again reflecting on EndSARS. Is that fair? Have I missed out any of the background that's important to highlight? Or is that a solid basis or a sufficient basis on which to continue?
No, well, I don't think so, because this thing is constantly like getting unleashed. It's taking different dimensions as the occurrences start to show their face, like a multi-layered event, and then like an onion, you keep peeling the levels to it, to have an up-to-date analysis of what's happened and what's happening and what might happen. We need to keep on like focusing on the issue and then try to break it down so that we have a clearer understanding of what it is that's going on. And then as people that try to analyze issues, political, economic issues, social and cultural issues, we have to, always have like an up-to-date explanation and analysis of these things that we're talking about. So it's really good to revisit things that we feel like we might not have just done justice to, or like not have a complete analysis of. So it's good.
Man. That makes sense. So listen, I mean, let me just dive into some questions that we've been discussing before, that I thought I'd pose for you guys here to see how you respond. And anyone can take it away, and then I can come back and say some more things. So I guess they can just be jumping off points for a wider conversation. So the first one I wanted to pose is, from you guys' perspective, like, what kind of economic forces triggered EndSARS? Would you say it was like growing immiseration and deepening poverty in general? Or would you say it was rather this new youth, entrepreneur, connected to the internet, socially mobile, savvy generation that's emerging? Like, which of the economic forces that people have been describing in the backdrop as a way to account for the movement, like which one of them do you think was most prominent in the cause, in the causal factors that sparked EndSARS? Small question, so I'm sure it shouldn't be an issue. So to tackle.
Maybe make us take that. Yeah.
The question heavy. Now you try and give me.
That's more thing now.
Yeah. That's why I make a boss.
Emeka.
You don't start. Well, how does one think about it? I think it's a combination of both issues. I mean, if you think about it, I think that maybe that's why timelines are important. So prior to the EndSARS thing, people like Omol Yele, sure. I mean, that's easier for me to pronounce.
Yeah.
I had started.
You don't even remember his name again.
They give me money, Joe. They pull money from my pocket.
Yeah.
See, you carry that list.
Yeah, no wonder. I stomach infrastructure in the post.
I mean, but he had started to stare or wanted to stare something, with the hike in electricity tariffs, and if I remember correctly, even price hike in price of fuel and all of that. But he hadn't quite kicked in, So I think there was that, with you and I, the everyday people, and I mean, when I say you and I, I'm not saying that we don't belong to the class that we try to criticize, but we know be fintech people. But so that's there. But there's also, I mean, and I think that this is the one that gained more prominence, as to how things played out with the EndSARS thing. This new upwardly mobile young Nigerian demography, which is why perhaps when you listen to them carefully, you'd realize that in many ways how they try to frame, the narrative around, that lovely 2-week period or 3-week period is around, gerontocracy. And then you hear people say things like our parents had it better than us,
right?
Your parents fit get them better than you because na class thing. What of other people where their parents know actually get them better than them? I mean, na same. So that's there, and so the reasons why both parties, across, class divide, were protesting slightly differed. But because of, the broad nature of what the protests were, police brutality as it were, everyone found common ground. But of course, push came to shove after the 20th, when, methods of protest started to diverge. Maybe it did start to diverge, way before that, but shortly before that. But it became, a lot more pronounced, after the Lekki thing, which I mean I'm sure we'll get to, but probably speaks to why that's been remembered as opposed to people who died, in all the other nooks and crannies of Nigeria.
Right.
Yeah. So
before or after the 20th.
Yeah. So I'll drop it there and see.
No, that's interesting. I mean, I think you're kind of pointing to a contradiction within the heart of the movement from a certain standpoint. That for some people it was the downward mobility, like the rise in oil in petrol price, the increase, in electricity tariffs, just the general feeling of like immiseration that was putting them on the street, with police brutality being the trigger. Whereas for other people, it was this feeling of like, me, why are my parents or, this generation before us not giving us enough space, that kind of thing. And I mean, that point is very interesting. I think we should, come back to that kind of question of the contradiction and some of the tensions that were existing within the coalition. But OEG, sorry, I'm sure you got responses to what Emeka was saying as well.
Yeah. I go largely with what Emeka has said, because those two things actually coexist in this issue that we're talking about. And then generally, like I keep saying that this our society, and no society is static. Like this our society is one that is in constant motion. And the general feeling in the country at this point, and even at that point in time, is that things are, we're having things going down and down. People are feeling, immiserated, they feel hopeless, coupled with economic problems, the downward drag that you have the youths inside of, the country, the ones that are feeling being dragged down. And then inside of that, you have this small band of youths that are able to make something of themselves. And they feel like, look, we're able to do our little internet stuff. We're able to press computer. We're able to work in the service industry and buy an iPhone, do this and do that. Why are you still harassing us? Why are you shooting and killing us? And don't forget that we've mentioned that this police brutality is a staple. What's that?
Second-hand iPhone.
Yeah, second-hand iPhones.
But not
UK
use.
Let me use the right term.
But
let me use the right term.
UK use. I mean, Nigeria use. Hey, but not everybody's iPhone who was at Lekki Tollgate. Not all of them were second-hand. Though. Some of them were tears. I mean, some of them were tears.
But you get the general picture.
How many?
That,
No, definitely.
The general picture is that inside of this general downward drag that the whole country is experiencing, we have a band of young people or youths that are experiencing a slight bump, that are able to have these material things. And then what the police understands is that, look, there's poverty in the land, people are poor and all that. How come how are you getting this phone? How are you doing this? How are you able to have this nice outfits, looking flashy and all that, And then this has led to the harassment of these youths, this class of youths, Let's not forget, and while that is going on, let's not forget that the poorest of the poor have seen no betterment in their lives. Let's not forget that, because these things are coexisting side by side. And what led to the spearheading of that movement, or the people that spearheaded that movement, are the ones that are having one or two things to do. The Uber guys, the guy that has the small iPhone, person computer, fintech stuff, But what the police understands is the general downward drag. And then he's going to appraise or deal with you in that context. Like, how come you have this? It means you're doing something illegal. And then we're going to have to deal with you or extort you because, it seems like you're doing something illegal. Because they, to a large extent, are not aware of this new modes of making business or having money online or doing so they will treat you as a criminal. Like, look, it means for you to be able to have this flashy thing, it means you're doing something illegal. Then they apply that force on you. But that doesn't mean that, the life for the lumpen man has changed. It's even gotten worse. And to a large extent, like we mentioned somewhere where we're discussing, that they already have a working model to deal with police. If it's the conductor already squeezes the money and puts it into the policeman's hand. So they know how to move. It's the new guys that are being visited by police harassment, that feel like, okay, they've charted a way for themselves through this economic quagmire, that are now up in arms, that are jumping and then feeling that are going to that entrepreneurship thing that you talked about and that age stuff. Because the age thing is the general stuff that we have that's like the icing on the cake. But when you go deeper into what's inside of the cake, you start seeing these different layers of, okay, the lumpen guys that are there with just enduring their fate, and then the new guys that are just touching a little bit more money, that are now witnessing police oppression for the real first time. So these are the dynamics and the
Okay,
interplay
but
of those two economic conditions and entrepreneurial spirit that we talked about.
No, that's brilliant. I mean, let me dig into certain aspects of that before we move on from this point, because it's like very interesting. There's like two streams are flowing and they kind of coincide at this moment. Around the issue of police brutality, but I mean, my question is this: let's call them the lumping. I mean, I know it's like problematic term for various reasons, and it's a term maybe people might not understand, but it's like the kind of urban poor youth, right? Those guys experience police brutality on a much more ubiquitous basis. OAG had a song like back in maybe 2017, if not earlier.
Yeah, they're about.
Yeah. Talking about like police brutality in Ajegunle and all of that. Why is it that it became a movement? It became like a street protest now. To get more specific in the question, because you guys have partially started answering it. Like, why is it that the folks on Twitter, the folks in Lekki, like the folks with iPhones, laptops, Range Rover, I'm bringing in the Range Rover, maybe that sounds unfair, but there was a poster I saw. There was a poster I saw at the protest, which was like, just because I have an iPhone and I'm driving a Range Rover and I've got a MacBook Pro doesn't mean I'm a Yahoo boy. And it's like,
Bam.
Do you know what I mean? Which is fair, it doesn't mean you're a Yahoo boy. But I mean, what unified, like, why did the Range Rover iPhone, like, having person suddenly feel like this was their issue? Do you know what I mean? Like, how would you account for their participation in that at that moment in time?
So just listening to OAG talk, about his own thoughts on all of this. I hear him, say that the police I'm not sure now whether he said this is what they understand or that they understand that, this is what they know. That this is what they feel. They feel that, while inflation is skyrocketing, prices aren't going, wages aren't going up, so increasingly, the cost of the basics is moving away from, what one can afford, and we all feel this, to different
definitely
to different degrees, so that's some common ground, anyways. But what the police doesn't quite understand, or one thinks that they don't understand, is the way that the structure of the economy has changed. So it's one thing, stands. And this is something that Chinua Achebe used to say, or always said, that where one thing stands, another thing stands. So I don't think about them in contradictions in that sense. I think that they are part of the same things, just that they stand. So the police, the average policeman, rank and file now, understands that, things are getting bad, all right? And, he can't afford the basics. It's becoming increasingly difficult for him to do so, It's not like there was ever a time when it was easy anyways, but it's getting worse. But, what they don't understand is why, this 18-year-old, 19-year-old is driving a Range Rover, like you say. Some of them now autobiography self, all the sorts of exotic cars, and so they keep asking us, in this economy, how these guys, these small children, how they do it? And then of course he doesn't have the tools to analyze this maybe the way you and I can. He can't think, for instance, that the structure of the Nigerian economy has changed. If it wasn't clear to anybody before now, it became clear around maybe 2014. Maybe I don't have the dates correctly, but at the time when we rebased this economy, which isn't to say that the structural change in the economy hadn't started to happen prior to that time. But
no, I guess the economists say that, like, between 2002 and 2004, like, Nigeria's economy grew at an quote impressive end quote rate, right? Something like 6 to 8% a year, and like it expanded in these various ways. There's like Nollywood and music and like the banking
service
sector and all
industry.
this stuff.
Yeah,
The service industry and stuff.
Yeah.
So it created like new
Avenues.
new ways of making wealth, new avenues. And it created a new, maybe let's call them cultural elites potentially as well.
You're absolutely
Right?
right, Said. I mean, and one way that I can relate to this personally, even though I didn't benefit from it, is that, I mean, for guys my own age, and I'm not going to tell you now how old I be anyways, but so guys my own age,
Hey, if you talk your football age, we not go tell. We won't tell the truth.
but for guys,
Or the audience can guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Free subscription for whoever guesses right.
at about
At
about 2006, or maybe even way before that, my own peers started to get gainfully employed, and that the one place where most of them got gainfully employed was in the banking sector, which had undergone so many reforms, prior to that time. So I remember that, for those guys, because I had quite a number of friends who were employed, in different banks, and I knew that, entry level was 100.
It was a good time.
Yeah, I think it was between 60,000 naira and maybe 150,000 naira. I remember this vividly because, I was putting in work at, the family firm where, believe it or not, I was being paid 6,000 naira. Of course, the gyro.
The M-bar.
Gyro, they come out from the side, but I'm saying what I took home at the end of the month, I had to fight to get
stupid cash.
Up to. So I'm saying this so that we can understand, the disparity in levels of incomes. I mean,
Definitely.
I wasn't doing badly. I could afford a beer and all of that. But I'm just saying what my take home, was, and all of that. But so the economy had started to change, and then somewhere in the tens, I think we realized, on paper, I think it was Emeka who did this job, the statistician general, where while people split hairs over, the size of the GDP, I think what, was most germane about what the work that chap did was that, we kind of realized that there were new sectors that had come up. What it meant in real time, we didn't quite get, maybe until now, if we were paying attention. So it meant that there's the boarding services industry, entertainment was beginning to contribute at least 1% to GDP, which it had never done before. And then all sorts of players were getting into it. Now, the overlap with some of these things is which people began to play in these things. I'll tell you this just from street knowledge. There were a lot of YY boys, Yahoo boys who had come into money at about the same time, and they were looking to launder.
Definitely.
They were looking to launder their money. I mean, sort of the kind of things that Jay-Z did with drugs, and these were guys who were big on
allegedly, unless you want to testify.
Well, not be me first talk up. So they could go they try other people first before it go reach my turn. But I think that the meat of, what I'm trying to get at here is, between clean money and dirty money, we know they know the difference again. So what had begun to happen was that this Yahoo boy started to pump money into the entertainment industry. And
definitely.
There's this guy who wrote something some years ago about this. I found it impressive at the time, even though I don't have any real memory. I think his name is Joey Akan or Joe Akan or Akwan, I'm not sure. But so this whole economy of the entertainment industry. And so when you think about it now, so that I don't take up too much time trying to break this down, there might be other times for it, but when you think about it now, and you think about the coalition of forces that came into this, EndSARS thing last year, you would find that you had the YY boys who took the back seat. You had the guys in the entertainment industry. You had the guys in the LGBTQ the LGBTQ guys, and then you had the fintech guys. And if anything struck me as unique about this last protest. It was.
And by the way, you're using guys in a gender neutral way, right? So you're also referring to,
so that they don't come at you, not
Okay.
me.
No, I mean, just to be accurate, of course, like women were forefront, all around the thing. Women in tech, women in banking,
I mean,
women
it was
entrepreneurs
women.
in various ways.
I mean, I don't think that I need to. I don't think I need to point out that. I mean, well, who knows? But I don't think I need to point out that women actually did spearhead this that moment in the Nigerian history. I mean, from the Femco people to the women in tech, in fintech, to just the two ladies who made sure that there was a bit of coordination, and then led in that regard. But
right,
yeah. So, but this whole coalition of forces, I mean, for me, probably the first time I had witnessed it, as opposed to organized labor and parts of the left in terms of vanguards, pulling the strings from on the ground. This deserves a really. There are tons of papers, research papers, the way that these young lads came together to organize it. So I think that this is something that the police doesn't. It's new to them, and then so if you look at the mode with which they extort, so it's extortionist, I mean, the way that they take money off, this small demography of youths, which is a representative of the larger, demography itself, they extort them. So if you listen to Twitter, then go tell you, all these boys go tell you, see, then take them, go ATM, then put their card in, then carry 30,000, then carry 40,000. Some of them never sleep for sale, though. As opposed to how the AJ guys, they take film, or the guys where they want Lungu for K2 or Mile 12, or other parts of,
I mean, and a lot of the stories people recount is also just embarrassment. Like, oh, police stopped me. I was coming from the club. I had some guests visiting from Yankee or whatever. They they like patted us down. The guy was drunk. His gun was swinging. He wasn't even speaking better English. And now, so the guy come embarrass us. The night was ruined.
He was reeking.
I'm not trying to downplay that. I'm just saying that's like another.
He was reeking of booze and.
Now, so and let me say I did downplay him because it's a scary experience. I've even gone through it. But I'm just saying, to further buttress the point you were sort of subtly making in there about how people's experience of, brutality, if you want to call it that, is like very different.
Yeah, I mean,
it's one strand of oppression.
Yeah, because if you listen to the stories coming out of Anambra, for instance, just to take one example, you go here say people they disappear, police they disappear people for Akuzu. Not be the one where they come out from the Lekki axis or the highbrow Lagos axis. So I mean, experiences,
different terrains they get their own. Sorry to button. Different terrains they get their own severity of that police brutality. Like it depends on the political sphere too, and then the free hand where the police don't get, the climate of terror, all these kind of things. They match up more. Like for it's crazy.
That's a great point. That's a great point that you make, and so make I throw in a bit of my own personal experience. Anybody who know me well, go know say if I jam police checkpoints, I'll most probably be singled out. For search, it's almost a constant. These days I'm older, I can handle it better. They don't prey on me as much. But I mean, with past experiences, I've always, the part of the country where I dread the most, I mean, the one I visit often and I dread the most is the East. So I don't even want to get entangled with any policeman in the Southeast. And that the reason why, the experience in the Southeast would radically or differ from, what I would experience on the streets of Lagos, for instance, or in Ibadan, is because there's a high rate of cultism, in the South, in the Southeast. So just by profiling me, I look to them like one, make a no call name, but one of them runs boys, and I get searched, almost to the point of I don't even know how to explain it, but it's a totally different ball game, to be honest. And then they go tell you, say then go shoot you, nothing go happen, and I mean I don't experience them.
And to a large extent, nothing happens when they shoot people.
Or not.
Yeah, yeah.
They go carry you go station, put one old ding gun for your hand, now waiting then recover with that. So when you face these guys, you go say there are degrees to how people experience police brutality, and so these two things came to play during EndSARS, But the one that was more prominent, like Said points out, is this one with the upwardly mobile, guys.
Yeah. Let me take that point just slightly further. I mean, in the 1 minute that we have left before our next segment, and is to say this: I agree with you guys that, like, the nature of police brutality is such that young people in general, whether upper middle class, or lumping in quotes, experience it. And then I agree with the further point you're making that, that experience is differentiated, but the fact that we all experience it was like a common, created a common ground. Exactly, a common unifier, that triggered the protest. But I guess I want to go one step further, because that common unifier has been there for a while, but one could argue that even if various people, particularly like, say, for instance, the Shore people, the Revolution Now people, who had actually been doing EndSARS, tweeting EndSARS, protesting EndSARS since 2017, but it didn't become a larger, let's call it, I don't know if you want to use the term mass. We can debate what's mass, but, became a larger movement. So, I mean, I feel like something peculiar occurred where, like, the group of people who had access to internet, who had access to, like, some forms of some international networks, were able to mobilize Bitcoin, that sort of thing. Fuck. Okay, this thing is just cut out, so.
A few moments later.
Yeah, no, so what you guys were saying was resonating with me on a number of levels, but there's one point in particular I want to draw out a little further, and it's where you're talking about, sure, everybody experienced some version of police brutality, but then at this very moment in time, some particular, let's say, class of people, the people who are like, have large Twitter followings, or they've made successful music albums, they have international networks that can mobilize Bitcoin, etc. That's not all Nigerians, right? That's not all youth. That's a particular sub-segment of society, decided to step up, right? So I'm very, I guess, interested. I'm very intrigued by what it is that motivated those people to step up. And it might be that, part of the upward mobility that we've been describing, of this class of people within the sort of 2-decade window where Nigeria's economy had improved and these new sectors had emerged. It may be that those people felt for the first time some measure of, like, political agency, where they were like, actually, you know what, we can actually take lead in society and we can actually change things. So I want to interrogate a little bit the role that kind of cultural elite, for lack of a better term, played, and the use of Twitter, and then the notion of leaderlessness. I know we thrashed this to some extent in the initial recording, but, why is it that this group of people kind of, whilst clearly in the lead in some form, wanted to sort of mask that leadership position that they were occupying? So these are the kinds of questions I'm, like, very curious about, and I've not framed it very delicately, I guess, but you guys are experts. So, how do we unpack that question?
Let me just do my quick run up there. Maybe Emeka can take this. Like, you see, with the access to wealth, or if you feel like you've stumbled into some sort of money, then of course there's corresponding influence on society, especially with with internet, with music, how you're impacting the cultural sphere. You have following, you can look at your followers and you see like 1 million, 2 million people. It starts to translate into some sort of mobilizational currency on ground, where you can tell people to do this. Let's start by this. You have a music video challenge and you have like 500,000 people doing this. Then it should be able to translate into something on ground.
Did you do the challenge? Did you do the
I don't know
challenge?
anything about that, but you see all these things online.
No, I know what you mean. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, I know what you mean.
So this thing
Yeah.
we can extrapolate to
Definitely.
to events on ground where artists feel like, okay, this extortion, this police brutality is starting to bubble up to touch people like me. I can see people around me are feeling this thing. So with this my new agency, with this my new currency, with this my new cultural currency and little money that I've stumbled upon, let me translate that into action on ground. Since after all, with in this phase of the damning economy, we're able to do something, and it's really not the government that is backing it up. Is that it is through our own ingenious actions that we've made this, so we can come up independent of whatever and come and speak our mind, and fight against these our leaders, so that's power that they found that comes with the new money that these cultural guys find, be it the entertainment sector, be it acting, music, and even the new Yahoo guys that have funneled their money through these spheres, and the new young people that are running into small money, and then this thing translates into some sort of coalescing energy on ground that mobilizes the youth to be like, look, we have to kick against this violence that is coming from the police. If not, it might touch you. I've seen my friend, one or two people around me, close people that this, police brutality has touched, so we have a lot of stories wrapping around on Twitter. And let's not forget that the internet is also the terrain of these people. So they are seeing stories, numerous times popping up on their radar. So they also feel like they need to lend their voice, even if they are the ones that have not, that haven't witnessed this thing, or they've
The
not
most
been touched
brutal
by
forms
it
of
directly.
it.
Yeah. So that's.
I mean,
exactly.
let me maybe now your reflections have helped me phrase the question a little more directly. So let me attempt that now for Emeka. Emeka, would you say that there was a sort of upper middle class cultural elite, for lack of a better term, at the helm of the movement, despite its purported leaderlessness? That's question one. Question two is, if they were at the helm, do you think that leadership they provided was ultimately a progressive one?
You don't start. Shebi, this exam where you set for me. If I answer and then come for me, you go talk, say the exam hard. You go shout.
No, I mean, we would defend you with our lives. This revolution is hard fought. Now that time the thing goes start.
Yes.
Anyway, on Tena's recommendation, I've had 2 tigers, so I always have a cop out anyway. So
yeah, because alcohol is a sufficient cop out. Shit. It's not. Yeah.
I mean, my brother, let's call a spade a spade. Well, there's the aspect that OAG, harps on. Twitter is a platform for engagement. There are a lot of young people out there who mastered, how to use that platform. You can gain popularity on it. So sometimes it's a popularity contest. I've been on that space, especially Twitter now. I mean, I've been on Facebook longer. I don't use it anymore. Twitter, increasingly, I'm trying to, limit my usage of it. But I think I have a fair bit of idea how it works. There are people who, by virtue of their own network, so maybe the first thing to say is that within the IT world, in the computing world, there's something called friend of a friend. That's how Twitter is built. One way to understand this is that Twitter always recommends people who are like people you follow that you can't follow. So it's a closed network in that sense. Don't forget that it's also a reflection of the larger society. So it's mirrors schools that you went to, your circle. If you study Twitter well, you find that their niche, there's a niche, and then there are people in different niches, and you can't actually break into it, to be honest. Whether they call themselves tech bros, or they call themselves writers, or they call themselves, and there's a bit of gatekeeping, that happens on there as well. One thing that struck me as funny, and I liked it very well when it happened, was that there was this set of Twitter influencers. and I know they fear them. I will call their names. The Ifawemi, this guy will be Buhari media whatever. Which is Tulu.
Okay, Tolu Ogunlesi, yeah. These are the
those are the ones who I
occupied
remember.
22
them
of
plenty.
people, you know.
Yeah. But they
people
came
who
into
emerged from
prominence.
that.
Yeah. They emerged. Yeah, they emerged into prominence from the Occupy movement. I mean, JJ, yes, or Modua, we're losing in tab for Arik Air. I mean, this is how these guys, some sort of activism, and yeah. So they held down that space for a while, and in the aftermath of the Buhari's election, the first bit, I think they lost some social capital.
Yes. Yeah, because some people would would claim that it was them that sort of like made the case for Buhari and his ilk on social media.
I don't they even check out for those guys, so I don't know who those guys are.
Yeah, I mean, arguably these are the sort of elder millennials, right? They may be the first generation of that crew of people who like had laptops and iPhones, back when Emeka was getting a 6K salary a month. So these guys...
No. I don't.
No, bro. I just they try frame things in historical perspective, man. It's not about it's not. I just they try contextualize things.
Yeah.
No, but don't mind me. Don't mind me, please go ahead.
It's fine. Yeah, but so man, these guys, in the aftermath of the first Buhari, I mean, the election that saw Nigerians kick out Goodluck Jonathan and brought in Buhari, the February elections. Yeah, these guys, I mean, almost immediately after started to lose social capital. I mean, they still have that massive following, but I don't think anybody, really cares what they say these days. And what I found immediately, that happened, just almost immediately after this was that there were a group of younger guys who started to speak up, who started to challenge, the authority of these guys, and then they were just gaining their ascendancy, over time, building their own kind of following simply because they were challenging these guys, the most frontally, almost on a daily basis, in terms of policy, in terms of politics, in terms of I don't know, just about anything, And this EndSARS thing just gave them some, springboard for them to jump. So I think that to the extent that, the way Twitter functions allows for popularity contests of some sort, I don't even think that it was, I mean, I buy what OAG is saying, but I also think that there's a bit of what I am trying to say that, that's at play here. So the last on to the movement, and then they used it to increase their own visibility and popularity, which isn't to say, to answer your second question, that they were not being progressive about it. But I think that a lot of what they did was for enormous gain. Nothing to do with an awakening of consciousness in any real sense.
Yeah, but if it had nothing to do with an awakening of conscience, and it was primarily for personal gain, even like gain within this sort of ephemeral digital sphere where it's just the numbers of people that the application says follow you, then what is radical or progressive about that? Is it the cause that they used for those purposes that makes it radical? Or, I mean, if what's radical about that outcome or progressive?
So we're speaking, even though I claim that, it's not contradictory for me, I'm sure that there are certain aspects that are. So when you look at, the makeup of, or the way that this protest, panned out in terms of before the 20th, and after the 20th, I mean, something had stirred, and these guys couldn't control it. They could try to direct it, but they couldn't control it. So you don't blame them when they say that it's leaderless. It was in that sense. I mean, so the kind of leadership that you got was basically coordination, which is why it seems as though it's in a bit of a flux right now.
Because that's interesting. Because like from that perspective, leadership means control. So as in it was because it wasn't being controlled per se by...
Or to come in lack of proper direction.
No,
Now you
sure.
had
I mean,
the
so
catalytic
this is how.
effect.
Yeah.
But where is it going into? Like, there's this quote that if the energy, like is it from Trotsky, that if you have energy like mass
What's
descent
it,
and all that,
Trotsky?
and it is not channeled into a piston box to move the piston to energy like for motion, then the thing will dissipate into nothingness. And this is
Yeah.
what we had with the EndSARS. Like, so
No,
the
sure.
people
I
where
mean,
they on,
yeah. No, after you. After you. Sorry.
all right, okay. So the people where they on top, that problem, like the widespread problem of police brutality, economy, and all this combustible mixture of bad economy, everything done there, and it reached the detonation effect. Now that's EndSARS thing. Now it's widespread. How you want to direct that feeling where everybody they carry now into probably revolutionary action or something we could give us gains for society now, waiting the leadership in quote. Now waiting then lack with that. And the character of that leadership as Emeka they talk, if no be people will get
Don't
any
quote
form
me,
of
oh.
awakening. No. I'm saying that, of course, it's based on what you said. That if based on say they don't get any awakening, revolutionary awakening or consciousness, then of course it's more for popularity and that this thing is so widespread that we don't have any choice but to go on it. We'll look like a square if we don't. See, they almost ate Burna Boy up now because he didn't want to go with it.
Yeah,
see that kind of shit. So yeah, something like that, you know.
OAG, now you they crack your brain on top this matter. These people don't
Nah,
get their blue
we
ticks.
just-
They don't get their blue ticks. They don't do on
We
top
just
of-
they-
No, but
of
you see,
Vogue
like,
and
just they try
essence.
to break them
then
down.
if that's the case, right? If it's the case that like
No, I'm just joking though.
no. But I'm with you.
I mean,
I'm
we're all trying to make sense of it. Yeah.
No,
Exactly,
for
we're
sure.
trying to make sense of
No,
it.
but you know, and I don't want to reduce it to just people searching for blue ticks. But I mean, that's clearly a part of it, right? Like, and that's what Emeka is subtly hinting at. And you know, OAG, like, you know, but I just want to say that, like, it seems therefore like mass anger every few years or so gets to the boiling point, and right before it erupts, like the next generation of like upper middle class or middle class people, like see that as a moment of potential, like, as a moment, as a potential,
or-
exactly, as a moment where they can potentially intervene, but towards a class project as well, like towards cementing a certain like class position or like
Exactly.
rising, right?
Exactly.
So you know, people see like, oh, Occupy is about to happen. Surely they also feel some of the wider grievances that everyone else feels, but like sitting in that strategic position also notice that, look, if I jump in at this moment, I can already I can expand this following, I can do this or that. And like, you know, you're saying that the same thing happened with a different set of people, with a younger maybe generation of people with EndSARS. And for me, it strikes me that like, if that's true, if that's what has partially happened here, then that doesn't necessarily redound to the benefit of the majority of people. Because what, you know, if you got blue ticks and more followers, then what did the youth, the like urban lumping proletariat who actually gave their lives get out of it? You know, besides besides a couple of days of free food and music. Do you know what I mean? Which they can get at a party with better music anyway, you know, when no one is like...
And without the promise of dying.
Exactly,
at the end
with less prospects of violence.
Yeah, but
So...
I think it's excuse me, but I think it's important to. I mean, like I like the word that you use, side partially. That's. I mean, even my critique is not foolproof, but I suspect that it's a large part of what prompted propelled certain actors to play out certain scripts. But there are also people who genuinely felt the need to step in and do something. I'll be honest. So it's,
definitely,
yeah. I mean, so it might help to try and also
Start to flesh it
no, that's
out.
fair.
Yeah, to
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, to decide.
And perhaps it's and those, like, I wouldn't even want to draw I wouldn't want to create a firewall between those two motivations, because like it's possible to feel like I was saying about people around Occupy, it's possible to genuinely feel the grievances of the nation at a given moment and also recognize this as an opportunity to conduct a class project. There's no reason why those two things are necessarily opposed.
They're not mutually exclusive, eh?
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
yeah. I feel like where you're, and this is one thing that Fanon says nicely, that your class origins will determine how you get into the struggle, and how like what you do with it, and how you direct the people, and how the advantages and disadvantages that come out of it. Because those people are going from their own class standpoint, as okay, even if they go in, they are not negotiating with the masses on their mind. They are going there with their own class bias or class limitations, because in that condition, it's a limitation, because your class standpoint, you negotiate within the narrow confines of your class standpoint, and then it will lead to betrayal of the masses on ground, because you're not conscious of what you're going in there for. Because your own police brutality just started yesterday. Then Baba Frayo's, Baba Frayo that sang about police brutality, they still beat them. So maybe the last year or 2 years, Army beat them. After you don't sing like how many, so you're not talking on behalf of those ones, or you're not mentally grafting yourself into the condition of those ones. So you go in there like maybe Davido, try to negotiate, and when they press you a bit, you say, no, it wasn't me. But people don't be done, they die now, bro. Like if you come there with that consciousness, you go know what thing you go to talk and how you go take approach them, and then maybe your standpoint go be more mature and all that, and then go lead to this apparent betrayal, of the people we don't been die and all that, so.
Yeah, sorry, are you done? Because,
I don't,
no vex. If you...
Yeah, no problem, bro.
Interrupt person, then he's now asking, are you done?
Oh, okay, all right. So I thought he was trying to, in comment. I'm just saying, like,
no. He's the one interrupted. Yeah. Only to say, are you done?
I want.
No mind that.
No verse. I just want, how did they speak that English? I want to waiting you talk. This is what what you're saying is it's clear from the aftermath of the 20th. When certain quote unquote influencers started to buy into the government narrative of hoodlums and all whatnot.
Okay, so no, that's that. I know we're running. Sorry, Emeka, you raised the critical point here. So, and we're running out of time. So that's the last question I really wanted to pose tonight. And I know we've not covered all aspects of this conversation. But the one I thought we should at least try to thrash out to some extent is the question of October 20 versus October 21, or the days leading after. Is that 1 year on, when people are trying to do EndSARS remembrance, the date that seems to have been chosen is October 20, which is the date of when protesters were shot at the Lekki toll gates, right? And I think that's interesting because from the standpoint of like whose death becomes memorialized. Exactly.
Yeah.
Whose tragedy becomes memorialized.
The emblem of the struggle.
Right. And then whose tragedy is maybe forgotten or not given as much place in history. So, Emeka, you were going to get on to this. I just wanted to frame it in those terms. So please continue, because you were talking about the 21st and the hoodlums question, etc.
Yeah, so for me, it's this lack of awareness, this lack of consciousness, that OAG was speaking to. The way it played out, the way it became most apparent is in the way that people started to deny the guys who were looting COVID warehouses. If COVID warehouse did near me at that time, I go follow looter. Quote me anywhere.
Word up.
Yeah, because
word up.
Yeah,
because
because we did COVID at the time. You understand? People know they chop. For a lot of
you
players
lock everything down
in the informal sector, they know where they make their money every day. They don't come out go chop, and then when I carry these things, even if not distribution problem, when I carry and put them for warehouse, and then the way these guys knew how to react to what had happened on the 20th, and things that something that happened largely to a certain the upper middle class, folks who were engaged in this struggle, and they started to respond in the way that they knew how, and all that we thought to say about their own response was that they were hoodlums. The hoodlums were the guys who government hired, which isn't to say that there weren't guys who tried to exploit the situation, but those guys they were insignificant, in the larger scheme of things. And so that, that differentiation, I mean, that got to me really bad, really. And then, and on the 21st, I was in the thick of all of that, in my own neighborhood. So if you call me hoodlum, fine, I don't even have a problem. I don't have a problem with that. But the truth of the matter is, that was a very rare, and those opportunities don't come every day, for you to bridge the divide, and try to explain
and show solidarity with the real downtrodden.
No, but that's the interesting part to me. I mean, sorry to interrupt, but the point you're making is so sound, and I want you to say what you're about to say about your neighborhood in that period of time. But it's so striking to me that, like, the people who were the people who showed solidarity most clearly were the lumpen, right? Like, seeing their comrades in that particular struggle get killed the day before was the last straw for a lot of poor people.
And they came out.
Even despite the fact that the people who were killed were living in a geography that suggests that they were in a different economic bracket. And they came out as a result. And sorry, I just thought to chip that in, that the expression of solidarity seemed to be clearest amongst the poor at that moment.
And this is something that, in the 2 weeks or the lead up to all of the 20th wasn't, as pronounced, especially maybe not in Lagos, or maybe in Lagos, I don't know. These things happen so, in so different, protest sites and locations around the country.
Absolutely. There was that diversity.
It's difficult to keep, tabs on. But to kind of respond, even though I'm not sure I have an answer to why the 20th was, I mean, I think that 20th, to take nothing away from people who died, on the 10th or on the 15th, of October 2020, is the day when the state, being the state, actually came out and then, cracked down severely on protesters at a site, that perhaps is commemorative of, of all that had happened in the lead up to that. It's the same way maybe we might ask what happened in Tiananmen Square, in Hyde Park, in different, there'll be places that will be symbolic of, a particular historical event. If you go back all the way to the 40s, in 49, it was Iva Valley. Which isn't to say that there were no protests all around, in and around the countries, as a response to, in Iva Valley, it's probably a little bit different, or, kind of different. But yeah, I'm just saying that I'm not going to really
double down or
on
no, that's fair.
On that bit. Yeah, I mean, if somebody else wants to, that's fine. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think that, no, always you have to, mate.
Okay, yeah. The big and to slightly with Emeka on that, fine. But one side of me, they say, now the people we get the cultural, where they play the forefront of the movements, like that class. Of course, that place is symbolic to where they get. Some people, they come up from our own backward area. They go that place because now there it happen.
Definitely.
No.
Yes. And by the way, I mean, the people who actually couldn't.
They go past three different protest ground. Go where they happen, where food they, so it's just symbolic. When that class down there at the forefront of the struggle, it's only natural. It's only natural saying that the thing will shell, so it's somehow tied to. See, it's somehow it's not to take anything away from, but it's somehow tied to that class, and then the people where they are at the forefront of it. However, just to move on to the people where die and all, and who did they call the hoodlums, all these kind of things. These are the real revolutionary force. And then in a society that has trampled upon millions and millions of people, let us make peace with the fact that anytime there is an upheaval in society, you will never have peace. Those people that are seeing you move around with bags of ice cream, going to eat at ShopRite, going to this. They know that they are being stolen from. They know that they are being robbed. They know that they are the dustbin people of society. When that time comes and there's that upheaval and then there's a breakdown of order, you will see them re-emerging from where you've kept them for the past couple of years. So they now again, EndSARS has gone. They've receded back into the suffering quietly. When we have another upheaval, they will come out even more because the society doesn't stop churning out more and more poverty-stricken people. And it's a machine that does, this system is a machine that means poverty. It means poor people. It means hopelessness. It means homelessness, and all that. So you see them coming out in more numbers, the real revolutionary force. So if the people, that are the upper middle class or the semi-middle class don't form that bridge that the makers, pointed out, they are going to encounter more, in quotes, is it disturbances, hoodlum, in quotes, action when that social upheaval comes, and then there's time for a detonative, action in society, So that's one point that I'm going to just put out there.
No, man, well said. Absolutely well said. And I mean, I will agree with both of you ultimately that because of the lives that were lost on the 20th, because of the kind of symbolic show of force, and because also the day after, members of the lumpen, the so-called hoodlums, the people who are really under the boots of the state, responded in solidarity to what had happened on the 20th. The 20th, still deserves to be memorialized in its own particular way.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think that I want to still affirm the point that we've been subtly making and sometimes overtly making throughout the episode, which is that there is some stain on the idea that EndSARS was some kind of moral awakening, given the fact that after the 20th, the people who responded on the 21st were denounced or were looked down upon or were considered a stain on the movement rather than genuinely kind of reckoned with as a result of the kinds of oppression that we were supposedly protesting, on those grounds. That's one thing. And then the second thing I think we've been saying here that's very valuable is that not everyone was experiencing or is experiencing that brutality differently. And the folks whose experience, the folks who took the lead, let's say, in organizing and in kind of drumming up sentiment around the protest, it's not clear that role was ultimately a progressive one. I mean, is that too? Have I gone too far in that summary, or
I think it's
have I
somewhere in
represented
between.
our views? Okay,
it's somewhere in between. There are no absolutes, there are some people that will have gotten out based on this thing is ubiquitous. It's a social force now. So you will be the silly one out if you don't say anything or you're quiet during the period of the storm, So it's not, that it's just what the consciousness is. What are you going to make of it? Is it a chance for you to climb up the ladder or use it genuinely? Or if your lack of consciousness makes it feel as if what you contribute or how you went about it is not too progressive or wasn't too progressive, then fine, but it's just probably a mix of both of them. Nobody, I don't think anybody gets sinister mindset, say, okay, make I just go use them solely for, it's a genuine concern anyway. Yeah. So.
No, I buy that. I mean, I think that's a fair place to kind of leave it, that, it wasn't a sinister motivation that pushed anyone to go out there. But for me, it's just what has been the legacy. And, and this is something that, we then went on to explore in a separate episode around the proletarian herdsmen, right? And I think we should come back to talk about again. But the fact that when in rural areas, now leaving aside urban areas where a lot of these protests took place, that's I think an important thing to emphasize is that these protests were primarily an urban phenomenon, right? But when crime was picking up in the rural areas in the aftermath of EndSARS, when there were news of attacks on farmers or on herders or this sort of thing, a lot of the same people who were protesting police brutality in the city were then calling for
state violence,
brutal attacks against the people, against the folks who were supposedly committing crime in the rural areas, suggesting to me that what was happening was less of a moral awakening and more of a people saying like, oh, treat us differently than you treat them being Yahoo boys or them being people who are living in the rural areas. And even if that's not a sinister motivation, it just doesn't seem like a radical one to me.
Class, it's not, definitely not radical, definitely. But it's just class, like the limitations of your class, where you start, where you're standing from your class point is where you make your analysis from, and this is what I keep pointing out to people, so that's what I feel.
Yeah, sorry.
Nice. Well, that's all I had in terms of questions.
No, but let me just say this. Said, I wanted to respond to something that you said real quick.
Oh yeah, respond and wrap up.
Yeah. I think we need to be careful with this urban-rural divide. I am not sure that I'm convinced that police brutality is a thing in the rural areas.
If you not be police brutality, but at least state violence, sort of somehow.
I agree. No, I totally agree. I mean,
but by the way, I wasn't even saying that police brutality was an urban phenomenon. I didn't say that. What I said was that the protest was an urban phenomenon primarily.
Oh, okay.
So now I think we can leave it there.